The galaxy had seen wars before. Fleets had burned across the stars. Empires had risen and fallen, but none of that compared to what began the day one human colony went silent. Erebus Prime had been a thriving world at the edge of human territory, a place of emerald forests, vast oceans, and white cities that glimmered like jewels in the light of its twin suns. 15 million colonists lived there, families and workers, builders and dreamers. They believed they were safe, protected by the unspoken truth that no species dared to provoke humanity anymore. Until the silence came. The colony's last transmission was filled with static and terror. A single phrase, half screamed, half choked, was all that reached the Terran command. "They're coming through the clouds." Then nothing. For 40 hours humanity tried to reach Erebus Prime. No signals answered. No ships responded. And when a reconnaissance drone finally arrived, it broadcasted images that chilled every human alive. The planet was gone. Not destroyed, but scoured. Cities were vaporized, oceans boiled, continents stripped bare. No life remained. The culprits were identified soon after. The Varnak Dominion, a reptilian empire that prided itself on its fleets of razor-scale warships and its ancient claim of galactic superiority. They had attacked Erebus Prime as a demonstration, believing humanity would hesitate, that they would negotiate or retreat behind their borders. They did not understand what humanity had become. When the Terran Council met, the chamber was silent for a long time. The leaders of Earth, Mars, Luna, Titan, and the outer colonies all stood in grief. Then the Terran admiral spoke only one word: mobilize. In less than a week, the dark shipyards of Mars ignited. Titan's orbit burned with the light of hundreds of construction rings. The hidden forges beneath Europa came alive. Across the human sphere, a tidal wave of preparation surged forward. Every factory, every orbital dock, every hidden reserve was turned toward one purpose: vengeance. The Varnak High Lord laughed when his council brought the news. Humans will protest. They will demand reparations. Their kind cannot fight a true war. He was wrong. 3 months later, the first reports arrived from the border. Massive energy readings, fleet movements beyond comprehension, entire sectors of human space falling silent, not from destruction, but from activation. Then came the number: 700,000 battleships. Not frigates, not destroyers. Battleships. Fully armed, fusion-cored, planet-killing vessels, each carrying more firepower than the combined Varnak Navy. No one in the galaxy believed it at first. Even the Varnak thought it was an intelligence error, until the human armada appeared at the edge of their star systems. The first Varnak defense line was annihilated in 13 minutes. Planetary shields melted under focused orbital bombardment. Fleets that had once ruled the stars shattered like glass before the human advance. The Varnak fleet commanders screamed across their channels. "They're not stopping. They're not responding. They're burning everything." Humanity didn't answer hails. They didn't negotiate. They moved with a terrifying precision, system by system, like a storm of steel and light. The flagships of the Terran fleet were colossal. Each one spanned 10 kilometers, bristling with rail cannons, particle lances, and drone bays that could unleash 1,000 fighters in seconds. Their armor was layered with neutron alloys and gravitic plating that shrugged off plasma blasts. But it wasn't their size that terrified the Varnak. It was the silence, no transmissions, no battle cries, only cold, efficient destruction. One of the Varnak admirals, a veteran of 2 centuries of warfare, watched from his command tower as his final defense fleet died. He had seen empires burn, but never like this. He whispered to his officers, "They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for memory." He was right. For every soldier aboard the Terran ships, Erebus Prime was more than a colony. It was family. It was a symbol of peace, and that peace had been shattered. Humanity had given the galaxy centuries of diplomacy, restraint, and order. But now the old fire had returned. The Varnak homeworld prepared its final defense. A ring of orbital fortresses surrounded their planet, each armed with antimatter cannons and shield arrays. Their population huddled in underground shelters, praying that their gods would protect them. When the human armada arrived, the light of their engines turned the sky into dawn. The Varnak Grand Chancellor sent a final transmission. "This war can end. We surrender." The message reached the Terran flagship Helios Prime. On its bridge, Admiral Rain stood before the viewing glass, watching the Varnak planet turn slowly beneath him. The crew waited for his order. His voice was calm, quiet, but filled with a sorrow that ran deeper than rage. "Transmit message to all fleets." The communications officer nodded. "Message reads," the admiral continued, "for Erebus Prime. 700,000 battleships opened fire. The Varnak defenses disintegrated. The orbital ring shattered. The planet's atmosphere ignited under the bombardment, and the surface turned into molten glass. In less than an hour, the Varnak Dominion ceased to exist. The galaxy watched in horror and awe. Empires that had once boasted of their strength fell silent. Trade routes changed overnight. Treaties were rewritten. No species dared to provoke humanity again, but the Terran fleets did not stop at the Varnak. They moved through the sector, hunting every Varnak outpost, every hidden fleet, every fragment of their once mighty empire. It was not conquest. It was erasure. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council called for an emergency assembly. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in the colossal Hall of Unity, their voices trembling as the Terran delegation entered. The human envoy walked to the center, dressed in the black uniform of the Terran Defense Command. He carried no weapon, no symbol of power, only a small metallic insignia, engraved with the name Erebus Prime, the council leader. A crystalline being whose people had once fought humanity centuries ago spoke first. "You have avenged your colony. You have proven your might. But 700,000 battleships? Such force will destroy balance itself." The human envoy looked around the hall. "Balance," he said slowly, "was broken when innocent lives were burned to prove a point. We warned the galaxy what we were capable of, yet some still thought us soft." His gaze swept across the delegates. "Let this be clear. Humanity does not seek domination. We seek remembrance. If you harm one world, if you touch one of our people, you will see what lies beneath our peace." The chamber was silent. Even the air seemed afraid to move. After that day, a new border was drawn across the galactic maps. It was marked in red, stretching across dozens of sectors. The words written beneath it became legend. "Here begins Terran space. Enter at your own risk. No empire ever did." Years passed. The human fleets withdrew, their ships resting once more in orbiting fortresses and silent shipyards. The stars calmed, trade resumed. But across the galaxy, the story of the 700,000 battleships was told again and again. To some, it was a warning. To others, a lesson. But to humanity, it was a promise kept. On Earth, a memorial stood in the center of the rebuilt Terran Council Plaza. A statue of a family holding hands, looking toward the stars. At its base were carved the names of every colonist lost on Erebus Prime. Beneath them, a single line read, "So that no world falls forgotten." The admiral who had led the fleet visited the memorial every year. He no longer wore his uniform. He came in silence, laid a small flower at the base, and whispered the same words. They understand now. The galaxy indeed understood. Where once humanity had been seen as one species among many, they were now the unspoken enforcers of the stars. Even the ancient empires whose civilizations stretched back 1,000,000 years gave them wide berth. Explorers from distant worlds would sometimes encounter Terran patrols along the border. The ships were vast, their hulls marked with the insignia of the old war. But they never fired, never threatened unless provoked. The alien captains who survived such meetings would return shaken. "They do not boast," one said, "they do not threaten. They simply exist, and that is enough to make entire fleets retreat." For humanity, vengeance had been a terrible thing, but it had also been final. Beyond the Terran border, rumors persisted. Some said the humans had hidden weapons so powerful they could tear open stars. Others claimed the 700,000 battleships had never fully returned, that half remained hidden in deep space waiting. And some whispered of darker things. Of ghost fleets patrolling the edges of known space, crewed by silent AI warforms built from the memories of the fallen. No one dared to confirm it. 1,000 years later, the Varnak homeworld was still a dead world, a black scar floating in the void. Its molten plains had cooled into glass, reflecting the distant light of a human watch station that still orbited above it. Every rotation, the station broadcasted a single transmission into the emptiness below, for Erebus Prime. No one knew why they still sent it. Maybe out of ritual. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe out of remembrance. But the message never stopped. In time, new species arose, new civilizations filled the stars. They heard stories of the old war, of the wrath of humanity, and most dismissed them as legend, until one young explorer from a faraway system ventured too close to Terran space. Her small ship drifted into the sector marked forbidden. Her sensors picked up something vast, and there, rising from the dark, she saw them. Rows upon rows of massive silhouettes, as